Well, we have had maybe one of the wildest days and or weeks in the history of Tesla. And so who better to make us all smarter about what happened, especially what happened today, than Bradford Ferguson. Hey, Bradford, glad to have you on board.
Yeah, good to be here.
So I woke up this morning, I did my show. I said, okay, we're sitting at almost 71 here. 271. Gosh, that's really high. If we
Going to be
close,
another update, right?
going to be another update. If we close above 265, then we might start making an attack on on 300. But if we don't close above 265, there's an awful good chance we could have a 20 to 30% downside.
Mm.
Well, I had already got the words, I'd already published it. And all of a sudden we had this collapse. So I have made some statements on other channels in the rest of today. Let's hear what you think triggered at least the downside, or what do you think contributed to it? Was it all about the 8.8 problem, or what do you think's going on?
I think mostly is about the robotaxi event being delayed. However, we were warning about FOMO in Tesla stock, given the huge rally it had seen off the bottom from April 22nd until earlier today. It was up over 90% from the lows in over 77 days or so. And typically when that's happened in the past, the last three times, it's gone up 90 to 120%. And then the last three times it's had these 30% pullbacks.
Yeah.
So we thought things were getting frothy, and just the way people were talking about Tesla stock made us think that people were just getting overly excited and euphoric. People are talking about $400 a share, $500 a share, just really doing a 180 on the sentiment. Even Ross Gerber for a couple of days said nice things about Tesla until today. It didn't last long.
That's long. So my speculation was that a whole bunch of folks were just waiting for an opportunity to take profits. They were looking for the top. They're trying to guess. As soon as the 8.8 announcement came out, the fact that 8.8 might, the rumor that it might be put off, that it's triggered a beginning of a sell-off, and that probably a whole bunch of people just said, okay, I'm grabbing mine now. And that just exacerbated things. But then there was a second round. Things had dropped down to something under 250, 244, something. And then all of a sudden we had another collapse. And I wondered whether that might have just been participation in what looked like maybe some kind of another problem, which I've been talking about for not 3 months, probably been a little over a month, which is the Magnificent Six being too frothy, and they needed a trimming. I recommended that might be 5 to 20%. And all of a sudden we got about 2% of that today, I think. And then Tesla continued down. So are you with me on that, or what do you think?
Yeah, we finally got inflation numbers that we wanted to see, and the market was down on the same day, which is just really crazy. Yeah, the tech heavy triple Q, so the NASDAQ was down 2.2% today, and the mid cap and small cap heavy index, which is a Russell 2000, was up 3.6%.
3.6.
Yeah, that's a 5.8% difference in one day between two very broadly diversified index funds. So that's really shocking to see. We just posted it today. I just did it 2 days ago, where I talked about the narrow market, where the Magnificent Six had been driving the market. 85% of the gains of the S&P 500 had come from the Magnificent Six over the past 5 quarters through the end of March. And we're at like record levels for the outperformance of S&P 500 versus small caps, or equally weighted baskets of stocks versus market cap weighted baskets. So it had really gotten out of hand. So today, we saw quite a bit of small caps and mid caps bouncing back. Maybe it's a short covering rally, but it'll be interesting to see what happens from here.
Yeah, so one of the other things I've been wondering what in the world was happening, and I've talked about it a lot on the show, is you kind of expect a rotation at some point. You kind of expect the value stocks to get in there someday. The guys that are paying dividends and whatnot, as opposed to these high flying tech stocks. And there just wasn't a rotation, and wasn't a rotation, and wasn't a rotation. And so I guess I called it about 5 months early. But having said that, one day's a data point does not a change
Right.
make. So I would not anticipate that necessarily this is a rotation. I could just as easily see Tesla springing back tomorrow or the next day on some other piece of news or no news. I could just as easily see the Magnificent Six maybe moving back up, because we've got, no reason to think that the fundamentals have changed. But I could also see a continuation down to that 5 or 10% pullback that I've been talking about.
And again, the Magnificent Six is Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and NVIDIA. And then there's Tesla, which was in the Mag 7. They kicked out, and then they brought it back because Tesla did so well since April 22nd. Yeah, it feels like an earthquake today. I'm curious to see what the aftershocks look like.
Yeah, it will be interesting. So in the course of all of that, of course, we did have these amazing inflation numbers. We had one, I forget what his name is, one of the members of the Fed today saying they're ready to switch sides. They're ready to say okay for starting to reduce the rates. But another one saying, no, I think we're still okay, at these rates. So I have this problem when 90% of everybody that's asked says that it's going to go down in September. That probably means it isn't. What do you think? Do you think this is now enough? Or do you think they need to see the PCE, the next employment numbers, et cetera, in order to make that decision?
Call me a cynic, but I think the Fed's going to wait until we're in recession to cut rates.
Would a 4.2 or 4.3 unemployment rate be enough for you? Do you think that would do it?
Yeah, I don't know what's going to do it for them. They said some of the comments that Powell said a couple days ago was that the economy was still on like a sure footing or something like that. They have a lot of data. They survey a lot of businesses, a lot of leaders throughout the country, and just in general, the Fed's going to be too late. So I'm guessing they're going to overstay their welcome. And early on, I was thinking that they wouldn't cut by June. I think September is a little too early.
Okay, so you and I are lined up for the November as being the first cut. Okay, I thought they would have no cuts this year, but now I'm just hearing, I don't know what they're hearing. They're talking to the wrong people. I really think third quarter is going to be a negative GDP print. Maybe the second quarter also, but probably we won't learn that until the second or third revision.
Yep.
So something like that might be in the offing.
We just posted a video to our website about some recession indicators having to do with unemployment, also with part-time jobs versus full-time jobs. So full-time jobs over last year have lost, been a net loser, and part-time jobs have been the full amount of the gain in the last year, and that's not a positive.
Not a positive, no. One wouldn't say so. Okay, so that kind of then I hope maybe helps people try to at least hear from two people what we think happened today and what might be coming in the future. I guess I could ask you, do you think the 8-8 day? Okay, let me give you my theory. See what you think about my theory. I think that Elon was caught flat-footed, that there was discussions somewhere in the Tesla world, behind closed doors, that there may have been discussions about delaying it, but maybe that wasn't a final decision. Maybe it was getting close to a final decision, and then it got leaked. And I think the reason Elon hasn't said anything yet is I think that they had this meeting and they were like, okay, listen, we're faced with this. Are we going to spend, 18-hour days until 8/8 to make sure we get what we want done? Or are we going to delay it? What do you think about my theory?
Yeah, so I was starting to second guess and wonder, why are they even having the event? And I think the purpose of the event is mainly for consumers, for consumers to see what the robotaxi will look like. I think it'll look cool. People want to get into it, be pictured getting into it. They'll want to try it out. They'll be curious about it. Also, showing the app to consumers, I think, is valuable for Tesla to do that.
Right.
So, possibly they want more prototypes to be able to drive people around on 8/8, and they don't have enough prototypes yet. That was an excuse that Bloomberg gave. Maybe they also want to put together a van or something that's going to go through the boring tunnels and show that off on 8/8 as well. And they just need time to get that ready and get it looking good and get it functioning. So, maybe those are some possibilities. And I think what was going on with the stock is there was this initial reaction and the stock was down 6 to 7%. And I think people are waiting for Elon to respond, sometime during the day, or maybe even after once the market closed. And we haven't seen Elon respond to this yet.
Do you think? Okay, go ahead. Do you think there could have been an overlay also of the reviews right now on 12.4.3 are not super great? Could that have been also in the minds, at least of some of the folks that pay really close attention and thinking, well, maybe the reason for the delay is actually that they want to move it back a bit on having FSD really, really solid by the event date?
Yeah, so I just got 12.4.3 last night, and I've tried it out today. I know I'm a small sample size. In some ways, it's worse than 12.3.6 that I had. And some ways it's better. It's more cautious. I thought it would have fewer safety critical interventions, but I personally already had 2 in about 50 miles. And I'm here in Carmel, Indiana, the home of Roundabout. I think it might be possible that they're waiting for 12.5 to have the robotaxi event. Then they could also claim that, hopefully with 12.5, they would be bringing self-driving to the Cybertruck as well. Which would be a huge step that, early Cybertruck owners are looking for.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, listen, we also I still believe that a big reason for the run-up was the recognition by the world, the folks that have got the blinders on, that energy is a thing.
Yeah.
Energy storage is a thing. And of course, you are the energy storage maven. You are the one who has more than anybody else carried the water for the last 15 months or so. What you said you have some updates or some thoughts with regard to energy storage for me today?
Though I will say Larry Goldberg's taking the mantle from me and some of his analysis. So what we saw with the production and delivery report on July 2nd was that Tesla had this massive jump from about 4 gigawatt hours to close to 10 gigawatt hours of energy storage deployed.
Right.
Now, we're not going to see the financials of that fully hit this quarter, but a good majority of it will.
Sure.
And it's generally going to be at higher pricing than what the current prices are. So the prices on Megapack 2 XL have declined by about a third since a few months ago. So these Megapacks that were deployed this quarter, were likely subject to the earlier pricing.
Right.
Now, I think where there's a point of confusion is that deployed doesn't mean that they get to fully recognize all the financials. Deployed means that in our opinion, our research, deployed means the mega pack is on site, that Tesla's done the construction to hook it all up, but it's not, fully energized to the grid, not fully turned on. Once that happens, then Tesla is able to recognize nearly all of the revenue, unless there are certain performance obligations for it. So I think that's where we're at. We'll see I believe we'll see a meaningful uplift in the earnings from the energy division, and the conversation will change around it. So I believe a good portion of the move that Tesla made was well deserved based off of these fundamentals, but then another portion of it was driven by the FOMO that we're seeing.
Right. And the FOMO. So I've held a theory for a long time that we hit the all-time highs 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, because of FOMO around robotaxi.
Mhm.
And that was the big driving factor. It was also an extremely foamy time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
There's
risk.
great margins in the business. I might be remembering wrong, but it
Yes,
felt
there's
like margins were above 30% for a hot minute.
and yes,
Maybe they weren't, and people were talking about margins going to 40% or above. And there was a shortage in cars that people didn't fully grasp, what those implications were, that once other automakers were able to produce more cars, and the price of the used cars would come down and the price of new cars would moderate a bit.
Right. Oh yeah, no, it's been a crazy time. I mean, obviously the COVID had a big impact, and the higher interest rates have had a big impact. All these kind of things. So if we ever get back to something relatively like normal, it'll be interesting to see how the company performs in a normal economic environment. Okay, and so what else is on your passion list right now?
Well, I think Tesla earnings have bottomed. I think that's another reason why the stock has done well. Like, instead of this one-way trip where analysts keep revising their earnings estimates downward, now because of Megapack coming online finally, in Lathrop, where they're at that 40 gigawatt hour capacity, then that firms up earnings. But also Tesla sold through an additional 33,000 cars, I believe,
Yeah.
this last quarter. So that helps them out with both earnings and cash flow compared to the prior quarter. Cybertruck continues to scale, so that'll go from a break even to producing profits for Tesla. So I think there's positive momentum in the fundamentals of the business. I guess the only question mark from here would be, whether or not we do have a recession, and what all goes on with interest rates and what consumers do with cars during this time.
Yeah. So, all right. So we have maybe you'll have an opinion on this. I'm not sure. I didn't ask you in advance. We've been talking about what exactly is a 2.5 vehicle.
Oh yeah.
And so what do you think a 2.5 vehicle is? Is it a different shape and body style than a current Model 3Y? Or is it, or if it is a different body style, is it the body style that will eventually be the full-on Generation 3 vehicle?
Yeah, I watched your most recent video with Jeff Lutz,
Okay,
so
all right.
I was listening to that. I think that was a couple days ago. I would recommend that for folks. And what 2.5 means, as far as I understand it, you can correct me, is taking some of the processes that they envisioned in the unbox process of making the car and implementing some of those in the current way of making the car. Is that right?
in the current way of making the next generation, something different, I think. Now,
Okay.
that's the point of contention. It's like, yes, we're going to use some of the unboxed methods,
Mhm.
particular on the periphery, not on the main line, but on the
Yeah.
peripheral things. We'll use what we can on those unboxed principles to make something. And Jeff was kind of seemingly leaning towards a stripped down or a less expensive Model 3 or Y. I've been leaning towards the actual Gen 3 vehicle, but not yet fully implementing all the production advantages. Now it could be something, I think the least likely would be something in between, like a different vehicle for the Gen 2.5 and then yet a new vehicle for the Gen 3. I think that's completely, I think that would be completely wrong. So I don't know if you have any opinion on whether Jeff or I seem, well, and again, by the end of the conversation, Jeff was coming around to my side and saying, yeah, I think he was anyway. He was saying we have to differentiate between these price points.
Yeah.
You can't have a Model 3 out there for 30,000 and then a Model 3 for 25,000. You need to have maybe at least a $10,000 difference, and there'd have to be some reasons for it. There has to be some justification for those differences.
Right. So yeah, the trim inside the car, might be different for the lowest end Model 3 and Y. I think it'd be smart for Tesla to continue to standardize between the 3 and the Y. The way the Y was pitched long ago in 2019 was that a lot of the parts would be in common with the 3, and that didn't happen to the extent that Tesla was talking about it. So, the Model Y has been Osborne a bit. Elon says don't talk about the upgraded Model Y, but to get it on similar trim levels, get the console in the back of the Model Y, get the seats looking similar, I think would help Tesla save money on costs. And like you're saying, differentiate the levels of the car from performance to long range to the standard range entry level.
And then to this new thing, whatever it's going to be, because if we're going to have a $25,000 car, even if it's not 25,000 in this iteration, it's got to be something in the ballpark. $31,000 car or $32,000, $29,999. But this new 2.5 does have to be a substantially lower cost than the existing 3, or the street is going to punish Tesla mightily.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if they if they do make a compact car that's not a robo-taxi, I think there's different things they can do with the design to make it smaller. For example, they don't have to have a center console. And if you want cup holders, maybe you mold the cup holders on the floor instead of having a center console. Then you can bring in the sides a bit and save on how much metal you're putting into the car, how big of batteries you need. You could greatly reduce the weight. We had kind of put the compact hatchback Tesla out of our minds as far as happening because of the news that happened around 8/8. Was that in April or was that a little earlier in March? I'm forgetting, but
yeah, I don't remember either. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I put that out of my mind for now. I'm curious. Elon did talk about building new models with the S. So I'm curious to see what they come up with.
Okay. Well, okay. So the other big news that absolutely nobody's paying any attention to is that the semi factory got a big delivery of steel. But then in addition, 2 days later, we've got a lot of groundwork being done. I mean, a lot. I don't know if you've seen the flyovers, but man, there's quite a lot of as Brian White likes to say, a lot of squares.
Mhm.
So I'm expecting that to be a fast up. Lutz thinks that we might be looking at some semis out of that factory by the end of the year. That seems
My
wild.
throat's a little dry. I apologize. I'm not laughing.
Oh, you're not laughing.
I think that would be a little soon. Um, one thing people don't know about Brian White is he did a great job tracking the construction of Giga Texas. And when he's talking about counting squares, I forget like the size of the squares, but basically he's looking at the level of finish for each level and the progress and the time and like how quickly all the structure went up around it, and use that to estimate how long it would take Tesla to finish the main structure at Giga Texas.
Right.
And he did a great job with that. I think it'd be good to see one of those videos again
Yeah.
and have Brian talk a bit about his process. So I'm gonna reach out to him and encourage him to do that.
There you go. There you go. Maybe I'll do that next Tuesday, next Monday with him. I'll steal your idea. No,
All right, let's do it.
one way or the other, we do need to see what he thinks. I think there's no question in my mind that they're going to be shooting for a really fast. They're going to really work to get that thing up quickly now that they've made the decision to do it, and it won't be nearly as complex or difficult as anything like Austin. Yeah. So
And the other thing I'll add there is we're seeing a flood of batteries now.
yeah.
Word has come out that a chunk of battery factories in Asia and throughout the world are only at like 40% capacity. So if batteries was part of the reason why Tesla was waiting to do the semi, now they have them in droves potentially.
Not only those, but you've got two factories. You got the Panasonic factory and the CATL factory coming on. No, CATL are the other one. The other guys,
LG.
LG. They have factories coming online this summer, and then the Reno CATL lines. Those are being constructed. I'm not sure. Nobody's given us any idea of when we can expect product off of those, but those were working lines. Those aren't going to require a tremendous amount of time to come up to speed. So yeah, I think
I don't have inside information on that, but I suspect that the CATL battery line that CATL is basically sold to Tesla so they can run it in the US. I think that's going to be in a different building than Tesla Semi.
oh yeah,
And that news came some time ago. So I gotta think that that line is up and running now or very close to being up and running. Maybe that's been a difference in the Megapack and Lathrop,
could be.
really making that jump from quarter to quarter from 4 to 10 or 150% jump in one quarter.
Right. You don't happen to have any, maybe you do, some insight into how much of that 9.4 gigawatt hours of storage deployment was mega packs versus power walls?
No, I wish we knew.
Okay. That would be nice. Maybe that's a question somebody could ask at the earnings call a week from Tuesday. Yeah, and then of course there's the last thing. Nobody's even thinking about Optimus anymore. He's lonely. She's lonely. It's lonely. Whatever. Because nobody cares. But Elon says that final version by the end of this year or later this year. Final version. So we could be looking at production this year, next year, early of some level, do you think?
Yeah, I think it'd be a huge positive if it's the final version. Investors may ignore it a bit if if Tesla doesn't show a video of it being faster than what we've seen or more capable. So they may kind of ignore it a bit, but for them to feel like they have a finalized version that they don't need to sit and iterate on the hardware anymore, I think would be a huge positive.
Yeah.
We just saw Sanctuary AI's CEO be interviewed by Herbert
Yes.
and John and Scott, and Basically, they said they are still iterating on the hardware.
Right.
And they don't have a robot with two legs. They think it's not necessary for the factory and that their customers don't want that. But I think that would be a huge positive if Tesla drew a line in the sand, were final about this being the version, and really go after producing it at scale, and training it at scale, getting it into Tesla's factories, getting it into suppliers' factories, and then eventually selling it to other manufacturers or leasing it to them.
Yeah, we've said it a bunch of times on this channel, but I don't think you can't repeat it often enough. If Tesla has that final version, they've already got about 8 months, 7 months, 6 or 7 months now of a staff in there planning the line, maybe buying the line, setting up the line. That's as of July. So by the time we're talking about a final version, they could have that line pretty well ready to go. They're vertically integrated on most of this stuff. They said they're making most of the parts themselves. They've got an inference chip that nobody's ever going to be able to duplicate. I mean, 5 years from now, nobody's going to have an inference chip that's going to be as low in wattage, with the amount of power, with the amount of capability as their inference chip. And they basically, it's their inference chip. And then they've got all the rest, all the data that they've accumulated for FSD, that's going to be, it's going to have applications. So, I mean, they're so far ahead that once they actually start building these things that can do useful work, it would just seem like it would be a slam dunk.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that Tesla's going to have scale that's unrivaled, and that's going to give them tremendous economics, and give them the ability to lead the humanoid robot race. And if you think about autonomy, if they could figure it out, they have the gigafactories where they're making over 2 million cars a year. They have the fleet that's sending them the data. They have the AI supercomputers like Ford, GM. They don't have the AI supercomputers, but I would say Waymo does, right? They have Google, and access to Google's supercomputers there.
Right.
But it's not like Ford or GM can just like wish themselves to have a supercomputer and catch up to Tesla. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Or even any of the Chinese makers. They're not going to be able to, it's just not going to happen. I think the best chance would be 𝐓𝐞𝐬𝐥, because they apparently have some capabilities, a lot of capabilities in that environment, but not, I don't think, on the level we're talking. Well, I know it's not anywhere on the level we're talking about. Okay. And of course, the big question that everybody, apparently the street would get it. The street would really understand FSD and Optimus if anybody was to license FSD or license any aspect of what Tesla's doing with robots. So do you think that is, people keep thinking it's going to happen next month. I think it's 𝐓𝐞𝐬𝐥. I think they'll be number one because they get it. But who do you have any thoughts?
Well, I think the most bullish thought, and this may be a stretch, would be that BYD would do it.
They're my second choice. Yeah.
And the reason why I think that would be the most bullish is because they're the largest maker of EVs.
Right.
So I think that would be even more interesting than if 𝐓𝐞𝐬𝐥 did it. 𝐓�XPeng's done a great job in copying Tesla. So, back in 2019, Elon's like, just copy us. We're giving you the patents. Just copy us. And that's a lot of what 𝐓�XPeng has done. So, they might be the most open to it. They are moving just about the quickest as far as EV automakers and the technology and how they make the cars and the software as well.
Right. Yeah. And then Brian Wang has his theory, which is it'll be these the ones that are already doing robocabs in China. We've, of course, had a couple of demonstrations, I guess, that are taking place now with a few dozen cars in a couple of cities, with Tesla vehicles being demoed. Brian's theory is that they would if they decided to go the Tesla route and use Tesla, if these tests work out well, that they can just immediately take on Tesla vehicles, and they would have to buy thousands and thousands and thousands of Tesla vehicles in order to do their ramp.
Why would they have to buy thousands of Tesla vehicles?
Because they don't make, Baidu is not, Baidu and these guys, I don't think they make their own vehicles, right? They're not using their own, nor
Oh, okay, I got you.
Or do they have access to anybody that's got, cameras and all the rest of the stuff. So the only source they would have, if they want to go from a few hundred or maybe 500 or 1,000 vehicles that are now deployed in China to 5,000 or 10,000, the only way they're going to do that would be to buy Teslas.
Yeah, maybe that could happen, or some kind of similar partnership. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, I understand you've got places to go and people to see. So I'm going to cut you loose, and I'll do the last little bit myself. Any last thing that you're passionate about or want to share?
No, I think we mainly covered it. We also did a video about Tesla cover calls.
Oh yeah.
And what we showed was a back test of how they did in 2020, because I think a lot of bulls fear if the stock runs up, what happens. If you were doing a consistent cover call strategy, they think you would just lose all your shares to the run up. So we shared a back test where it actually worked in 2020, despite the stock being up 730%.
Wow.
So we share some of that data.
Interesting. All right. Well, people should check that out. All right. Bradford, thank you so much, as usual, for coming on Thursday night. And we'll see you next Thursday.
All right. Bye.
Bye now. All right. Well, let's take a look at what is happening with the markets now. Well, you have to turn yourself off, I think. You have to, if you're going to go bye-bye.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, so let's see where things are now. The last time I checked, Tesla was down in the after hours. Yeah, it's down another 2% in the after hours. Let me see, just for fun, let me back that up to the dollar amount. So okay, here we go. So down $4.51. So sitting at 236.52 as we are approaching the 5 o'clock hour in California, where it will be over for the night. Who knows, again, what might happen tomorrow. I did check a few of the Magnificent Six, the other six. I did check. Some of them are up a little, or down a little, but most of the action is very, very light. A buck here, a buck there, up or down, 30 cents, 50 cents. So not a tremendous amount of movement in the other six. So Tesla continues to get hammered the worst today. But again, you got to keep this in perspective. Tesla was down 8.44 today, 8.44%, where Google was down 2.78, Apple 2.32, Amazon down 2.37, Meta down 4.11, Microsoft 2.48, and NVIDIA down 5.57. So, and NVIDIA didn't announce any change in their upcoming meeting, and they were still down 5.57. So if you put this kind of in the overall context of what happened in general in the market today, I'm going to say there was a few points of this. There's a few dollars of this were definitely a fear thing or a anxiety about moving the meeting. But I think a big piece of this is just it got way out too far. And on this channel, we're all about watching for things that just get out there way too far. And potentially it's going to be a problem. So in addition to Tesla being out there too far, I've been talking about the equities being out there too far. So we had the NASDAQ down $364 today, the S&P down 50. The Dow Jones was up 32, which would be more evidence of that kind of rotation taking place. But if you put those in percentages, we've got the Dow Jones up, I'm sorry, did it wrong. Up 0.08%, but the NASDAQ down almost to 1.95%. S&P down 0.88%. And then again, 2.3, etc. And then the Cathie Woods, except for 𝐒𝐭𝐤, the rest of the Cathie Woods stocks were all up nicely today in this, another piece of that rotation. All right, let's go ahead and look inside and see. I always say look inside. Doesn't mean anything to you, right? That I'm looking inside. Let's see here. We have got the bonds up a little bit in the pre-market, up 1.2 in a partial recovery. When I say recovery, in a little profit taking from the bond run up today. So we have got US 10-year at 4.20 now, the 2-year at 4.51. That is now just a 31 basis point difference. It's easy to see that now. 31 basis points different. That is broken below the 33. It's 1 day of data point, so we'll continue to watch that and see what happens now. Now the 2-month is up 3.8 basis points in the pre-market, and that is 5.374. That is 110, 115. Okay, so that's about normal. It was up earlier today. It was a lot more than that. So there's been a little catching up. All right, we'll check that a little more carefully in the morning again. Let's go ahead and look at oil. I think most of the rest of things, 33 cents up on oil, 82.95 on the Texas Intermediate, Brent unchanged at 85.40. Now that's interesting. 83. Wow, that's really interesting. You now have less than $3 difference between Texas Intermediate and Brent, less than a $3 difference. I'm telling you, I've been watching this now for years, but also very carefully for about the last year. I don't think I remembered ever being less than maybe for a couple of days. So again, 1 day data point. Natural gas up a little bit in the pre-market at 2.27, 2.277, call it 2.28. Again, that's kind of in the range. That's not crazy. Gold down a little at $4, but that is off of, and I didn't check it, I'm so sorry. That's off of 2004.17 when it actually 2004.21 at the close, and now down 4 from that at 2004.17. That may or may not be the all-time high. I did not think to check on that. Silver sitting at 31.62 may also be very close to the all-time high, but that is also taking a little profit, down 0.16%. Copper at $4.51, up 0.22 in the pre-market. We've got the Bitcoin barely changing today, down 76, not even 100. So you could almost call that hunch. 57,383. We have got the Japanese yen up. We have got I'll dig into I'll also try to remember to dig into these currencies tomorrow, because with all of this craziness that took place today, I think it's very important for us to understand how these currencies might be affected. So I'll look at the currencies, and I will look at the gold and silver in terms of whether they're at all-time highs. All right, the pre-market. We got the Dow, equities. We got the Dow up 42 or 0.10. So that would be a continuation of being slightly up today. We got the S&P up 3.0. That's 0.05. So basically unchanged. NASDAQ also only up 8.5, which is 0.04%. So basically the S&P and NASDAQ unchanged after this wild day. They are unchanged in the pre-market. All right, so let's see. That is pretty much all we have on the agenda today. Let me know in the comments below what you think is going on. You've heard all day long. Maybe you've been listening. I've given speculation and ideas about what took place today. What do you think? Do you think there's more to the story that we just don't know yet? Do you think it was just profit taking? Where do you think we go from here? I've been saying that I think that we will see some possible recovery tomorrow in Tesla stock, maybe some partial recovery in the Mag 7. But what happens over the next week or so is maybe a little more interesting than what happens tomorrow. And then again, we may test 425. That would not be shocking, and we might bounce off 425. Take a look at 425, and maybe it holds at 425, or maybe, who knows, could go below 425. The market right now is very, very wild, crazy, and unpredictable. All right, that's all I got for you right now. Please like, subscribe, notify, and if you didn't watch, I'll put it up. I'll put the card up right now. I should have mentioned this earlier. If you haven't taken a look at that video that I did with Tesla boomer mama, Alexandra Mertz, you should definitely watch that one. I'm very proud of what I did in terms of that video. I think it was very interesting, and I think you will as well. So there's the card for that one. All right, go take a look at that one. All right, it's been great talking to you.